This is Diesel for We the People News, and this is Grease Monkey, alright, which is off branch of High Impact, alright. What I like about this story is he really calls out the contract part of this, that most people don't really put two and two together, alrighty.
Days ago, I've been meaning to get around to this, but on some level, CNN tells the truth and then mixes it with lies to make the corporate media feel good. Aaron Burnett calls out GOP hypocrisy. Of course, the GOP is hypocritical. Of course, Republicans are tyrannical hypocrites. Of course, Democrats and Republicans are playing for the same banking team owners. Of course they are, but they're all in the same. They're in the banksters' pockets, guys. This is a banker world, funded and fueled by the American and worldwide tax cattle who keep this nightmare going by continuing to comply. They're all in bed together. But watch how the Communist News Network waxes virtuous when they're calling out the GOP for their hypocrisy as they try to foist more terrorism down your throat. Basically, what they do is they highlight terrorism as an example to foist their terrorism. Check this out. They're going to use George Washington. They'll use the GOP. They'll use Kristi Noem as an example. But listen to this psychological operation. The BS is about to get thick and deep, so you better have your hip waders on.
Out front tonight, bring it on. President Biden facing down a barrage of Republican outrage over his new COVID vaccine policies that will impact up to 100 million Americans.
What is your message to Republicans who are calling your vaccine requirements an overreach, who are threatening to challenge it in court?
Have at it. Look, I am so disappointed that particularly some Republican governors have been so cavalier with the health of these kids, so cavalier with the health of their communities. We're playing for real here. This isn't a game.
He's referring to Republican governors because some of them are piling on the outrage. The governor of South Carolina, Henry McMaster, tweeting, "Rest assured, we will fight them to the gates of hell to protect the liberty and livelihood of every South Carolinian."
That's how everybody should be thinking. That's how everybody should be thinking like Patrick Henry. Guard with jealous attention the public liberty. Suspect anyone who comes near that precious jewel. Nothing will preserve it but downright force, and when you give up that force, you're utterly ruined. No governor is for your rights, guys. They're for control. They're for shades of tyranny. They want to make themselves look good, but they're still political parasites, sucking off of the time and laboring energies of the people that they rule or govern or control.
South Carolinian. And then there's this.
What the Biden administration is doing is government overreach, pure and simple.
My legal team is already working, and we will defend and protect our people from this unlawful mandate.
When we see elected officials violate the Constitution, we have a responsibility to fight back. And that's what we're doing. You should not lose your job just because...
And fight back is exactly what we're doing with SB 2006, where later on the document it says the public health officials and authorities can quarantine you, and if they deem it necessary, they can use any action they want to basically jab a needle into your arm. That's what Ron DeSantis is. That's what Ron DeSantis' SB 2006 in Florida actually states.
Joe Biden is having this hit.
This guy right here is definitely a Trojan horse, just like all those Republican governors.
Bit.
In the halls of Congress.
Now here comes the deception.
The response from elected officials, Ted Cruz calling it utterly lawless, Marshall Blackburn saying Joe Biden is sounding more like a dictator every day, the number 2 Republican in the House, Steve Scalise, accusing Biden of being a desperate politician abusing power. And not to be outdone, right-wing media cut to the chase.
We had to elect this rotting bag of oatmeal to get a real tyrant. I mean, that's what Joe Biden
couldn't get his act in order, and so he decided to issue a tyrannical and authoritarian order here.
Okay, time for facts and not fake calls of tyranny. Facts, in fact.
Those weren't. I am not for Ben Shapiro. I'm not for Fox News, Jesse Waters. I'm not for those Republican governors. I'm not for Democrats, just to make sure that you guys understand I ain't some kind of libtard, but that what they were calling out is tyranny. It's Joe Biden's tyranny. That's exactly what it is. Fake calls of tyranny. Give me a break, Aaron.
That you would think the GOP would embrace, because can you believe that this actually goes all the way back to George Washington? Yes. Vaccine mandates have been part of the United States since 1777, when George Washington required his troops be immunized for smallpox.
Okay, so what did George Washington do there? If it's true that he required that his troops be immunized, they didn't call it immunization, it was called variolation or something like that. Yeah, variolation. It's the obsolete method of immunizing patients against smallpox by infecting them with substance from the pustules of patients. By the way, the case fatality rate of those supposedly, historically, if you can take that with a grain of salt, variolation caused a 5 to 10% case fatality rate, which means every 100 soldiers that had this variolation or inoculation, 5 to 10 out of every 100 soldiers died from that practice. They say that 30 to 60%, or the case fatality rate of smallpox, whatever that is, was 30 to 60%. So basically, they were saying George Washington weighed his options, and he was like, well, if we do this variolation, inoculation, we'll be on a better footing to combat the British Army. Otherwise, if we get sick from smallpox, we'll be decimated, and we'll be dead before the enemy gets to us. So if that story is even true, what Aaron Burnett is basically saying is George Washington, who foisted a mandate which is tyrannical on his troops, is the reason that we should accept the current tyranny. So because of the tyranny of yesteryear, well, that gives us carte blanche to go ahead and foist tyranny this year. But the other thing is, this is a different aspect of it, is that if you're an enlisted individual and you signed your name on the dotted line to become a part of the military, whether it's the 1777 military or the 2021 military, you basically signed your life away as a slave of the U.S. government. Let me show you this. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Because basically, she's trying to correlate, hey, it's okay to have these VXX mandates because Washington foisted tyranny on his troops, which kind of technically isn't tyranny, although I haven't seen the document that they signed back then. And a lot of those people, I don't know if there was enlistment and draft or anything like that. But if they did enlist, they probably signed some kind of document saying, hey, I'm basically signing my life away, kind of like they do today. I don't really know about yesteryear, but I do know about current times. And this right here is the DD Form 4. It's the military enlistment contract. Let's just go ahead and put it in plain terms. It's the military enslavement contract. What people do when they enlist is they sign this contract with the military-industrial complex saying that they are relinquishing all of their rights to the U.S. military. In essence, everyone who enlists in the armed forces becomes a slave of the military-industrial complex. You give up all your rights. They tear you down. They want to erase you and build you up in their image. That's what this is about. Look at this. I understand that many laws, regulations, and military customs will govern, control, enslave my conduct, and require me to do things under this agreement that a civilian does not have to do. So Aaron Burnett comparing what Washington did with his military men and his troops, or what a general today would do with military men and his troops, is apples and oranges, because even according to the DD Form 4 today, there's a difference between civilians and military individuals. Military individuals have to do it if the U.S. military says it, or if the federal authority says it, but civilians don't. because these guys signed a contract. So on its face, what Aaron Burnett is suggesting here is apples and oranges and completely deceptive. This is another example of CNN deceiving their audience with complete bullcrap. Listen to this. And we don't even know if that story about George Washington giving the mandate for his troops to get inoculated is even true. We don't even know if that's true or not. Why? Because history is written by the victors. Listen to this.
Last I checked, pretty much anything George Washington did is sacred to the Republicans, who are now slamming Biden for following George Washington's precedent.
Who cares? That wouldn't make it right. Pointing to a tyrant of yesteryear, and even, it's so funny, it's just like, it's such a psychological operation because there's so many good things that came out of the pen of people like George Washington and Samuel Adams and Patrick Henry and all those guys back then. One of the things George Washington said is government is not eloquence, it is not reason, it is force. And like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. Basically he's saying, hey, beware of government. Beware of people who think they have a higher claim over your life and property than you, because they will. They'll act like they're public servants, but they'll treat you in reality like you're the servant and they're the master. It's a dangerous servant, a fearful master.
And now suddenly it's un-American? But let me just offer you some more. So I took you back to 1777.
Watch this.
But I actually don't even need to do that. I could just show you what the very same Republican governors who are calling tyranny against Biden are doing themselves right now in their states. Yes, every single state in the United States of America has a form of a mandate for certain vaccines for students.
Listen to this.
Let me just give you South Dakota, where Governor Kristi Noem, as you just heard, called Biden's plan an unlawful mandate. Well, perhaps she should look in the mirror, because she actually has a vaccine mandate in her state for school children.
Okay, I'm going to pause that right there for a second. You guys heard me many times. And the one thing she is telling the truth about on this behalf is behind closed doors, Democrats and Republicans are the same. So, ain't she the governor of the Republic? They're doing the exact same thing as the Democrats.
I'll read it to you, because it's
Public school children. Now, Aaron Burnett just correlated the American, just the regular general population with military men of the 1700s. Now she's going to compare the American population, the entirety of the American population, with public school children and parents who signed a waiver that their kids, they accept that their kids will be inoculated. Apples and oranges again. Because you have a choice as a parent in America today. Pretty much,
I had to agree with this guy on this, right? Look, people. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, and if you don't believe in this deal, take your kids out of school. Public schools. 1-2 years. I bet they'll clean their act up. No kids, no funding. You want to put a stop to this? Then put some effort behind it.
It not be in all states, but it's the majority of the states. You have a choice whether you put your children in public school or not. And when you put your child in public school, you do sign a waiver. Sure, measles, mumps, rubella. Okay, go ahead. I'll check off on that. I don't know why parents do this. It seems strange to me. It doesn't look like you're trying to protect your child by handing your child, the mind and body of your child, over to your enemy, the state, saying they can put these chemicals into your child's body. But, it's done with parental consent. Having parental consent in Americans who do not consent to mandates is two completely different things. Oh, this is...
And just for argument's sake, what about you Christians out there? You don't trust the government. However, you're giving your kids to the government.
So in your face, blatant to me, that they're trying to deceive people and make these false correlations here.
right here in black and white, her policy, her state. Any child entering school or an early childhood program in this state shall, prior to admission, be required to present to the appropriate school authority certification from a licensed physician that the child has received or is in the process of receiving adequate immunization.
Yeah, and you can view that as a contract. The parents sign a contract and basically sign away the lives of the bodies and minds of their children. Just like an enlisted guy on DD Form 4 signs his life away. I also understand that various laws, some of which are listed in this agreement, directly affect this re-enlistment agreement. And a lot of these things, it says they actually waive their consent. It says, I understand that I can be ordered to active duty at any time in time of war. My enlistment may be extended without my consent. You will see that a lot in DD Form 4. Without my consent. But this is a contract, and the guy who signed the contract agreed to have something done to him or an order shoved upon him without his consent. So basically what this is a person's consent for the government to do something to him without his consent. That's the apple. The orange is American people didn't sign such a contract and want no part of a mandate in their life. But Erin Burnett is basically saying, hey, it's the same thing. Why are you guys resisting it? This is the same thing. No, it's not.
That's the same thing on plea bargains, parole. You're giving up your constitutional rights, y'all. Ooh, excuse me. I feel a little rough here the past couple of days.
No, it's not.
Or is in the process of receiving adequate immunization. Goes on to list the illnesses. Rubella, mumps, tetanus, meningitis, varicella, which is, of course, the virus that causes.
She thinks she's got him.
That's a vaccine mandate. I guess it's okay for her, but not for Biden. I'm not sure what excuse she'd make for the George Washington precedent.
Wow.
But the fact is that Noam and her fellow Republicans who are stomping with...
Hey, Erin Burnett, my email is under every single one of my videos. Have CNN contact me, and I'd like to come on your show and challenge you on your false choice and your false assertions and your straw man that you're setting up. Clearly.
Outrage are hypocrites. Vaccines work. That is why South Dakota and every other state in the country requires them, has mandates for them, just like the COVID vaccine.
And there's an opt-out. There's an opt-out in almost every state. You do not have to have your kids be in public education in the 15,000-hour government indoctrination camps. You don't have to do it.
It's work now. Just to remind everybody what those Republican governors, of course, know full well. Unvaccinated Americans are 10 times more likely to be hospitalized with COVID and 11 times more likely to die.
Now, why wouldn't I believe that? Oh, you have cool graphics. I love your colors, yellow and white, and I love the chyrons, and this is great.
So, what is the stats on the big V?
You look so legitimate. Now, why don't I believe the Counterfeit News Network? Oh, yeah, it's because they're always lying. Always lying. I just wanted to show you that. I'm going to keep this video short. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comment section below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to my private email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. That way, if everything goes dark, we can maintain contact. If you want to support this channel, one of the best things that you can do is hit that subscribe button, share.
Alright. Anyway, I wanted to bring this up because it did talk about contracts, and most people don't really think about on some of these things of the rights they actually do give up. Right? When you take your kids to public schools, they are the parents. You gave the government control of your kids. There's even been small Supreme Courts saying that whether you're in school or not, that the government has authority over your kids. I believe it was Arizona that said that. Anyway, Diesel We the People News. Bye, y'all.